Hello world, it's Sunday and I have some more things I'd like to share with you. And you wonder, how is it that I've come up with all these things all of a sudden? It hasn't been all of a sudden. I've had this in me for a while. And I've had 5 years of being alone to think about a lot of things and through a lot of things. And I spent most of that time, or not most, I spent most of it working, but I spent most of the non-working time writing in my diary, praying and seeking God to find out why and how everything that I consider to be my home and my family, my life, how it all got ripped from me. And I've prayed, God, what was it that went wrong? Now, ultimately, of course, it was due to unrighteousness, but I wanted a little more specific. And the reason I wanted to know why so much is I don't want it to happen again. I really don't want to live the rest of my life alone. I'd like to find someone who's a godly person to share my life with, but I thought that's what happened the first time, and it didn't. So somehow something was missed, something happened. I don't know what it was, but I'd like to find out. So I've been praying, God, tell me what went wrong, that I lost what I thought was everything. And I have a diary I've written that's about the size of half of a phone book now, because it helps me think and helps me go through things and helps me learn things. And I thought about this story that I've known for a long time, very common story in the Bible. I'm going to read you this from the Bible. This is Matthew 7:24 through 27. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, this is Jesus speaking, and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Well, see, this confused me a little bit because I said, God, I felt like I built my house on the rock. And yet, and I'm not talking about the physical house, you realize. I'm talking, although I lost it too, but I'm talking about the home. And I said, I feel like I built it on the rock. And it still, everything crashed. So what was it? And anytime I'd ever pictured this story, and I've known it since I was young. I used to teach children's church, and I would, when I think about things, I picture pictures in my mind. And I don't know if most people do that or not, but I do it. And I would always see a picture of a boulder for the rock. Now, that's not something you'd really probably build a house on. You would build it on like a rock slab on the ground. But for some reason, my mind always pictured this big round boulder. Like something from Indiana Jones or something in the mountains of North Carolina, those big, huge rocks. A round gray rock that's on top of the ground. And then next to it, I picture a mound of sand, like a pyramid. And I would see one person on the rock, and I would see one person on the sand when I'd hear this story. And I'd see the storm come, and the one person on the rock stayed, and I'd see the other one, and the other person on the sand and would fall. So that's just always kind of how I pictured that story. But when you join two people together and they become one, as the Bible says, what happens when it still crashes and you thought you were on the rock? And I was a little perplexed by it. And so God showed me something one day as I would continually pray about it and see the picture in my mind, person on the rock, person on the sand, person on the rock, person on the sand. And one day I saw a different picture. And I saw the rock and I saw the sand side by side. I always saw them side by side. And he showed me the picture of a man. And the man was standing with 1 foot on the sand and 1 foot on the rock, straddling them. He was really on neither one. He was in space. And God said, this is kind of what happened. And he said, this is not a one-person thing. He was telling me, I felt this a lot of people nowadays. There's a lot of people. They have a foot on the sand and they have a foot on the rock. And they think the rock is going to save them if something goes bad, because they are touching it. They got a part of the rock. They believe in God. They believe in Jesus. They're serving God. Maybe they're going to church. They are, they're working for God. They're believing God, and they kind of have it in their mind. Now see, the rock represents everything of Christ. And then the sand represents the world, or the carnal nature, or our old sin nature, everything that's not God. And he said there are so many people that have one foot on each, and what they think they're going to do is when they see a storm coming, they're going to push off from the sand, and they're going to land both feet on the rock for a little while. And they're going to say, I'm sorry for what I did over there, and forgive me. Not that God doesn't forgive you, but you need to stay on the rock after that. But he said what's happening is when the little storm passes that was coming and everything's calm again, they start missing what was over there in the sand and thinking they're missing out, and a little bit of carnal desire comes up, and so they put their one foot back on the sand and the other foot on the rock. And he said this is kind of a rampant problem right now. But what happens to a man, or one? What happens to a man that's got one foot on a pile of sand and one foot on a rock? If the storm comes and the sand is eroded and washed away, what's going to happen to that man? Well, your center of balance is not up high enough on the rock. You're on the edge of the rock. And the momentum is going to, and the gravity is going to pull you down. You're going down. That's what's going to happen. You're going down. You're not going to be able to push off from cascading, collapsing sand to push yourself onto a rock. You're not going to make it. You can't have one foot on the rock and one foot in the sand. You're not going to make it. So he showed me this and basically said, this is what happened as to why you lost what you thought was on the rock. Because everything wasn't on the rock. There was still a little foot over there on the sand. And I said, okay, God, I kind of understand that. A little bit. But it's not enough. Because, God, I was on the rock. Fully on the rock. I didn't have a foot in the sand. I didn't. But yet, when the person who had the foot in the sand went down, so did I. Everything I had, everything I was, it all crashed down too. And God, isn't that a little unfair? I was not doing that. I was not playing that game. I was on the rock. But yet, why did I still lose what I had? Why did it still crash? He said, you didn't. You didn't fall. You didn't go down. I said, God, it felt like I went down. I felt down. You know, if you're wondering how to pray, that's how you pray. You just have a conversation with God. Even if you don't feel like he's answering you, like God sometimes, he doesn't answer me every time like this either. But he was this one time. Sometimes he does. Sometimes it comes later. Sometimes I read it in the Bible. But this one time, we're having like a mental conversation. I wasn't even speaking out loud. This is how you pray. You talk to God just like he's a person, and you wait for him to answer either something you read or somebody tells you. You just keep, sometimes I go months and years without specifically hearing anything from God. So I asked God, you need to show me more of what happened, because I feel like I was standing on the rock, and yet my home and my life that I had still crashed like the person on the sand. And I didn't get an answer from that for a long time, for a few years. And one day, I saw a picture. Hi, Patty, I see your little picture up there. This is your new cousin, Luann. I do this. I just started doing this, a little thing on Sunday nights where I give a little testimony and sing sometimes. Then I do other lives where I do other fun stuff. But so one day, I was thinking about this again, and I was probably laying in bed, I'm awake, and for some reason, it popped into my head again. The thought of being on the rock versus being on the sand, being on the firm foundation, being on the shifting sand where when the storms come, everything's going to crash. Hi. And so I said, well, as I was laying there thinking, I was just thinking about this picture. Now, anytime I have ever seen pictures, things that I've thought about, things that I see a picture in my mind, it's always been a picture like a still picture, like I was looking at a photograph. It's always just been a photograph that I saw, or maybe a series of what looked like photographs to me, still pictures. So I saw this new picture in my mind again. I didn't see a man standing with one foot on the sand and one foot on the rock who had crashed. I now saw just the boulder, the big round gray boulder that for some reason was what I always pictured as the rock. I saw that. There was no sand. So apparently it had already crashed. There was only a boulder with a girl standing on it. And that's all I saw. And I was way back from this picture that I was viewing in my mind. I was way back from it. And I was looking at it. It was like it was way off in the distance. And I thought, okay, this picture's kind of changed again from the first one I envisioned. And I'm just sitting there thinking about it. And you know, have you ever seen a thing where somebody's filming something with a camera and they have it on a tripod? And it's some sort of a scene that's not moving. It's just say scenery. And then they go pick up the camera off the tripod and it goes like this when you see that. Well, I was looking at this picture in my mind, another still picture like I'd always seen. Suddenly, it was as if a hand had taken an unseen camera and picked it up, and my scene that I was looking at in the distance of this girl standing on a rock, it swooped like this, and I was actually a little seasick for a second, and I'm like, whoa, what is happening? This has never happened before. This has never happened with anything I've ever seen. Anything I've ever pictured in my mind has never moved. Why is it moving? What in the world's happening? And then the camera, it wasn't a real camera, but in my mind, I'm thinking of it as a camera. The scene stilled and it started to zoom in on this girl on the rock. And I thought, oh, wow, what in the world? I've never seen anything like this. And I thought, God wants to show me something. He's going to show me something. God's going to show me something. I was so excited. I'm like, God, what are you going to show me? 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 I couldn't wait. But this camera was moving in real slow. Was given plenty of time for me to think. And maybe he didn't want me to get woozy again. And it got closer and closer and closer to this girl on the rock. And I saw the girl on the rock and said, oh yeah, it was me. Okay, well that wasn't unexpected. I am on the rock. I said, well, God, I kind of thought that, you know, I always tried to be in you and to stay in you and to be on the rock. So that's me on the rock. But the camera kept moving. It kept moving. It kept getting closer and closer and closer. And I'm like, oh, we're not done. There's more. Oh, okay. So I'm seriously, in my mind, it's just a picture in my mind. I'm seriously on the edge of my seat, wanting to lean forward to see, what are you going to show me, God? What are you going to show me? And he came closer and closer and closer till he got to like on my face. And then the camera picture started to pan down, going down the length of my body. And I saw my face, and then I saw my shoulders, and then I said, oh, okay, what are we looking at? It's going to show me the rock? What's it going to show me? It went down to my legs, to my knees, and it kept going down, and I'm like, what am I going to see? And he got down to my feet, and I saw I was barefooted, and I went, you showing me my bare feet, God? I don't get it. And it was moving so slow, I sat there going, why am I barefooted? Anyway, you know, if I had pictured me, if it had been something I had conjured up, I would have been standing on the rock in sparkly red sequin high heel shoes. I would have been barefooted. And I thought, why are you showing me my bare feet? I don't get it, God, I don't get it. Well, it kept moving a little closer. So I'm thinking, okay, well, there's got to be a reason. What is the reason? Am I standing on holy ground? And so I took off my shoes like Moses did in the Bible, maybe. Well, if I was standing on Christ, the rock, that would be holy ground. That makes sense, but I don't really understand why you're showing me that. And so, or is it just I'm barefooted because I grew up in Southwest Florida, so I grew up barefooted. We always played barefooted in the yard. We climbed trees barefooted. We were barefooted in the house. We had shoes. We just didn't wear them. They were too hot. We just run outside. You knew where the sandspurs were. You avoided them. And I'm like, is it because it's a more natural me? I mean, why? And then he got to where he was focused very close in on my feet. And the camera, kind of camera stopped for a second, and I'm like, yeah, that's my feet. And then it started to pan to the side, like turning. And I said, oh, we're not done. We're not done. There's more, there's more, there's more. Well, okay, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it yet. God, what are you showing me? What are you showing me? It took him forever to get to it. But I was in sitting on the edge of my seat of my mind in anticipation. He panned to the side, and I saw the back of my feet, my heels. And then when I saw that, I said, oh, wow. My heels, I was not standing on the rock. You know, have you ever heard of a tornado or a hurricane that moved a house off its foundation? That can happen. Can happen. I don't know if it can move you off of Christ if you're really on him. But that can happen in the earth. You can move a house off the foundation if you have a strong enough storm. But I was looking at my heels from nearly the back, from this scene that suddenly had changed from just a girl standing on the rock. I was not standing on the flat surface of the rock. My heels, both bare heels, were standing in little, what looked like cups. What it was hole. They weren't holes, so they were indentations in the rock. They were indentations that were perfectly round, perfectly smoothed, as if they had been, you know how if water will, if it goes over rock, it'll smooth the rock. It won't be jagged and rough, it'll be smooth. The indentations, they were smooth, like it had been eroded and not carved with a chisel or something, but eroded that way. And it was perfectly fitted to my heels. And I sat there in my mind looking at this picture of my heels in indentations in a giant boulder. And I felt like God spoke to me and said, when your home fell and crashed because of the other person having one foot in the world and one foot on the rock, he said it might have felt like you fell. He said you didn't fall with it. What happened was you held on to me so hard, you dug your heels into solid rock. And this is why you have not fallen. This is why you're still there. It's why it might have felt like you went down. Have you ever seen a dog or had a dog? You had to have had a dog to do this, particularly a big dog, and they go outside in the yard. And you have them on a leash, and you're wondering, if they find something they want to sniff and they don't want to move, you know what they do? They go like this, and they dig their heels in, and it doesn't matter how much more you weigh than that dog, you can hardly move them because they have dug their heels in, and they have shifted their weight, and they have anchored themselves so hard that they don't want to be moved, and it's hard to move them. God said, this is what you've done. You didn't know you were doing it. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. I just knew a storm was swirling around me. But he said, you dug yourself so hard into me, the foundation, that you dug holes into solid rock. And you are now standing in it. You're not on the surface. You're dug in. And because you are, nothing can pull you down from this foundation. So I'm going to tell you, if you are someone that has a foot in the world on the sand and a foot on the rock, thinking, I'll have the best of both worlds. I'll have both the sand and God. I'll have a little fun when I want to, but then I'll turn to God when I want my prayers answered or I want to be forgiven or whatever. That you're not going to survive a storm. You're not. You have not only got to be on the rock, you got to start digging in. That's the only way you're going to last. It took the person who had the foot on the sand and the foot on the rock. We were together, married for 28 years. It took a long time. But one day it's going to happen. It's going to crash. And you think, well, I'll get over there. I'll get over to the rock before something bad happens. But you won't have time to dig in your heels. You won't have time to erode rock. You won't have time to carve indentations for yourself unless you have been there. I hope this has blessed you and ministered to you and will somehow help you. And maybe to understand how everything around you could be a part of you. You know, it was a part of me for a while. Everything could crash and everything can go down, but you can stay on the rock. I'm going to sing a couple of songs here. I could make up my mind. So I'm just I love medleys. I love to mix old and new songs. I'm quite an unusual person, even for my age. I know old songs because when I was 11 years old, they let me join the church choir, which was almost unheard of. They don't usually let an 11-year-old join an adult choir in church, but I did because I begged. I wouldn't quit begging. And they finally agreed to let me join the choir, and they were still in that era, which was the early 70s. They were still singing some older songs from the hymns. And then my piano teacher and my voice teacher was an older Baptist, independent Baptist pastor's wife. She was an elderly lady, so she knew all the old songs. And because I love old things. I love antiques. I love vintage. I love old things, including old songs. I think it's a shame to lose our old songs. I'm all for new songs. I love learning new songs. But we don't have to let go of the old. We can mix. We can learn both. So I've got 3 of them here. They're mostly old. One of them's actually from the 80s. But, you know, that's old now. It wasn't old when I knew it. It's considered, but the other 2 are old hymns. And I pray that they bless you. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. When darkness veils his lovely face, I rest on his unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. His oath, his covenant, his blood support me in the whelming flood. When all around my soul gives way, he then is all my hope and stay. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. Though all hail assail me, I shall not be moved. Jesus will not fail me. I shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. I shall not be moved. Though the tempest rages, I shall not be moved. On the rock of ages, I shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. I shall not be moved. When he shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in him be found, dressed in his righteousness alone, faultless to stand before the throne. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. So be like lights on the rim of the water, giving hope to the storm sea of night. Oh, be a refuge amidst the slaughter of these fugitives in their flight. For you are timeless and part of his puzzle. You are winsome and young as a lad, and there is no disease or no struggle that can pull you from God. Be John 10:27-29. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. My Father which gave them me is greater than all, and no man is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand. I hope you had a good Sunday. If you have a father or someone in your life who is a father, I hope you had a happy day. If you are grieving because you've lost your father, or maybe you're someone or know someone who didn't get to be a father, or maybe you didn't have a father with you, or he wasn't there for you, or he wasn't a good father, and you're grieving today, know I'm thinking of you. And I know it is painful. I have a father, and he was a good father, and he is still with me. But I never got to be a mother. And on Mother's Day, it's like a little day of hell for me. It's horrible. It's so lonely. Even though I still have my mother, I didn't get to be one. And when you don't get to be one and everybody celebrates you for being a mother or a father, you feel like, I guess I'm not as good as them. It's very hard. So if you are grieving today, or if you've lost your father and you're missing him, or he was not there for you, know I'm thinking about you, and that you're not forgotten. You're still important. You're still valuable. You're still just as important as anyone else, and as valuable and as important to God's work as anyone else. So I pray that you have a good evening. You have a good week this week at work. I usually do this every Sunday, late afternoon, evening. At least I barely started it. I've only just started doing this a short while ago. I came across the idea of doing a live, and I thought, why don't I do that? It would give me a chance to sing. I don't really have much of a chance to sing like I used to in church, and I'd love to do it. So I thought, I'll just do it myself. So I am. And then I started thinking, I've got some things that God has shown me and God has helped me with. And I thought, maybe that can help other people too. And I love to tie songs and scriptures together, and it just all goes together. And I thought, I can do this. I can do this. With God's help, I can do it. And so I do this every Sunday. I also, this is only the third or fourth time. But you can go to my page. You can see the other ones that I've done. And if you're interested. And you can go look at other things I've done. Makeup videos I've done where I've made afternoon tea. I love afternoon tea. I've just been having fun. I've been on vacation this last week, and I've been having such a good time doing something because I'm here alone, and being alone's lonely. And now, hey, look, I've got a way to talk to somebody now, other than just people at work. It's great. I can talk to the world if the world wants to listen. So you have a good evening, and God bless you. And I love you.